Now it's my pleasure to introduce the College of Communication commencement speaker, Bonnie Hammer. Bonnie is the president of NBC Universal Cable Entertainment and Universal Cable Productions. Prior to this, she's been the president of the Sci-Fi Cable Channel since 2001 and of the USA Network since 2004. Both of those networks are owned by NBC Universal. Ms. Hammer first established herself professionally in New York as a programming executive at Lifetime Television, where she oversaw production of the several award-winning documentaries. She joined USA as a programming executive in 1989 and has moved ever upward at both companies ever since. More important, well, maybe not more important, but she is a 1971 graduate of the Boston University College of Communication. She also earned a master's degree in media technology from the University School of Education in 1975. She launched her career in television at WGBH, the public television station here in Boston, where she produced the critically acclaimed series This Old House and Zoom. She later was named the executive producer at Good Day on Boston's ABC affiliate. She is, it may go without saying, a distinguished alumna of this college and the person we all wished we could have been if only we had worked harder. Please join me in welcoming Bonnie Hammer.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, for sure. But I must admit, I've never been in a hockey stadium ever before. So this is kind of daunting and a bit awesome. But I think this is a really good way to begin, don't you? Great day, all you guys down there on the floor. I'm excited. But anyway, it's truly an honor to be standing here with you today, the class of 2009. Congratulations. Now, I know that many commencement speeches begin with, when I was sitting where you are today. Well, I ain't going to be using that phrase because I've never been sitting where you are sitting today. And I'm not using it because of any need of a lack of cliches, because if you've been in the business as long as I have, you know the value of cliches. But I never attended either my undergraduate or my graduate degree, perhaps because I was too hip or too cool. So today I proudly share this honor of wearing this robe for the very first time. But in case you're wondering, I wasn't really hip or cool back then. I was just caught up in the zeitgeist that didn't place importance on this particular rite of passage. Instead, in the aftermath of the shootings at Kent State and throughout the continuing war of Vietnam, I and many others were caught up in the heady student activism that had its own public rights. We protested against the war and the draft. We were doing mass marches on Washington. And a bit less politically, we attended huge outdoor concerts. And although these rights didn't have commencement speakers, they had people like BU's own Howard Zinn, who taught us, really, his classes were amazing. But he actually said and taught us small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. A lot of us baby boomers were members of the counterculture. And depending on your political leanings, we were branded with a litany of labels. Trust me, there were plenty to go around. Whatever we were called, most of us have since moved on from communes and protest rallies to condos and boardrooms. Some of us still wear Birkenstocks, and other of us, like yours truly, fill our closets with a few Manolos. Yet, however differently our paths have diverged, most of us believe, and I do for sure, that we were riding the crest of a wave that was going to be truly profound and bring on change. Bob Dylan sang, "The times they are changing," yet none of us had any idea how right he would be. Our world was transformed and will be again, but this time by you guys. Today, your Vietnam is Iraq. You've experienced the consequences of terrorism, and you've been forced to understand the reality of an economy defined by recession. Yet in the midst of all this turmoil, you have found and given us totally new hope. You are the most educated and most savvy generation, tech generation ever. You are the most socially responsible and politically committed in decades. You guys are the legacy of the baby boomers, and you've embraced opportunity to create the kind of change your parents could only dream of. Yeah, I know. Up close, change isn't necessarily pretty at all. You know, from my eyes, it looks like a perfect storm out there. A collapsing economy, high unemployment, and here you are, graduating from the College of Communications, when the entire world of media is in flux. Every single thing you guys have chosen to focus on professionally is being redefined. Advertising, journalism, film, television, all evolving in ways you never imagined. But to me, it's these changes that will open new doors of opportunity. Life, as Dean Fiedler said, is all about change. Upheaval is constant. As President Kennedy once said, there is nothing more certain and unchanging than uncertainty and change. H.G. Wells kind of put it a bit more bluntly when he said, adapt or perish. Whatever the phrase, we have no choice but to accept change. And I believe that an exciting life, no less an interesting career, is all about not just accepting change, but embracing it. Years ago, I was working in broadcast TV right here in Boston at WCVB of Needham when I was offered a job in the new emerging world of cable television. Nobody had really heard about it yet. My colleagues, including my boss, basically urged me not to take it. They said it was a dead end, there was absolutely no future in it. Well, if I hadn't made that leap into the unknown, I wouldn't be working in one of the few profitable and growing businesses in media today, cable, or working for a great company like NBC Universal. And I bet I wouldn't be standing here talking to you guys about it today. The good news, everyone graduating today, you are hardwired to capitalize on the biggest changes all of us are wrestling with, precisely because you've grown up with this new media landscape. You're in a position to offer a fresh perspective. Employers like me will be looking even more intently at you and your ideas. So while you're polishing up those resumes, I urge you to focus on the most important asset you're bringing to the ever-changing marketplace, and that's you. I think BU has provided you with the tools to do just that. It certainly did me. As an undergraduate, I majored in photojournalism and took classes from a brilliant but tough drill sergeant. Literally, this guy was ex-Army and tough and sometimes mean, but he was also wonderful, and his name was the late Harris Smith. Needless to say, this was in the pre-digital days. I spent many an hour in a darkroom, fingers turning yellow from a chemical called hypo, while I patiently waited for images to emerge, not knowing whether what I shot was going to come through, sometimes surprised by a beautiful image I hadn't planned on. These days, I've gone from lugging around a Nikon that seemed to weigh more than me to a digital camera the size of a credit card that fits in my back pocket. But I have to tell you, I still love that Nikon, and I still use it. But when I shoot with a digital camera, it's to get the job done. I know what I want to capture, and if I don't get it, zap, it's gone. Editing is a snap, almost too easy. Back in those days, we weren't allowed to edit at all. Harris Smith taught us how to see through our mind's eye. We had to think before we shot. We never were allowed to crop or frame or alter it in the darkroom at all. In fact, we had a hand in our negatives with our finished photograph. Not because he didn't trust us, of course, or at least that's what he told us, but so he could be sure that he was teaching us the art of photography. That is, how to find and capture an image in its pure form without manipulating it in any way. I would have found it impossible to see on Harris Smith's terms if I had constant access to a delete button. For all that we've gained with digital convenience, and we've gained plenty, we may have lost something too, the art of seeing. Over the years, from Cartier-Bresson to Walker Evans to Annie Leibovitz to Matthew Barney, what is constant are the beautiful images that resulted from the unique way they saw the world. That's what endures. It really doesn't matter what piece of technology generates that image. It's about how you capture it, how you offer it to the world, your unique point of view. Now, the same goes for communication in the digital world. I can't begin to describe how remote the possibility of simultaneously transmitting thoughts throughout the world would have seemed to me, or your parents probably, when we were your age. But here we are, we've all adapted to a revolutionary new way of communicating, and it's created an unprecedented set of behaviors. First of all, rapid response is valued above everything else. Judging by some of the email chains I'm on, it seems to matter less what you say than how fast you say it. And I gotta tell you, there's a huge downside to all that speed. I nearly faced a career ender when I reacted to a typically snarky email from my boss with something like, "What a jerk." Only a little sharper, a little too sharp for this august occasion, but I'm sure you can fill in the blanks to what I actually wrote. Now, it would have been fine had it reached the friend it was meant for, but I accidentally hit reply instead of forward, which meant my boss got it. Luckily, I was friendly with some of the IT guys, and he was traveling across country during a time when you had a few blessed hours away from your computer, and I got it back. To this day, I read every email twice before I even fill in the address, no less, push send. Then, of course, there's social networking, whether it's the no unuttered thought concept of Twitter, or the public Facebook, or the public diary of Facebook. A lot of energy is being extended basically on two types of people. The ones imploring, "Look at me," and the ones doing just that. If you add in the overwhelming assault of information that bombards us constantly, you're looking at a world of digital noise, when thoughts are only half-formed before we've moved on to the next, where we are poked, tagged, or tweeted to the point of distraction. Communication has become an endless high-speed game of verbal ping-pong. You know, they say in space, no one can hear you scream. I believe in cyberspace, no one can hear themselves think. Thoughts are far more than a random stream of words, or God help us, emoticons. Real provocative thinking needs room to breathe. So take the time to see, to write, to think. Your unique point of view is what will distinguish you in the marketplace, so embrace it. As communicators, it's important for us to remember, of course, Marshall McLuhan insights notwithstanding, it's more than the medium that makes the difference. It's what you've got to communicate. Technology may change, and it will, but your message will survive long after the medium on which it was delivered has been long forgotten. All right, so how does this help you in the real world? In my experience, it boils down to the skills you've learned in school, plus a few human basic values. The easiest way I think I can talk about this is with a little bit of storytelling. BU's master program in media and technology kind of got me started on my career path, but at the very beginning, it truly looked like a dead end. I held a couple of really unsatisfying jobs after undergraduate school. I was bored to death. And then I realized a master's degree was the best route to what truly interested me. But of course, I came to the realization in June, after the admissions deadline was closed. After getting no's from the head of admissions and the dean of the department, I went to President Silber to plead my case, because I figured, as president, he must have some clout and could bend some of the rules. When I called for an appointment, by the way, I still cannot believe I had the chutzpah to do this, but I did it. I was told I could see him in 20 minutes. I dropped what I was doing. I ran to his office in my, of course, hypo-stained work shirt, jeans, and yet my Birkenstocks. And as I feared, he told me I was too late. I don't know whether it was my earnest pleas. I know it couldn't have been the outfit I was wearing. But he ultimately told me if I submitted all my materials, transcripts, essays, recommendations, by the end of the week, I would be considered for that year's class. Now, to you guys sitting here, it might not seem so hard to do, but getting transcripts, even in those days, before computerization, was a nightmare. Well, you guys know the outcome, but what got me there is something that's become a trademark: not being afraid to ask for what I want. If you really want something, you gotta just ask. What's the worst that can happen? No is just a word, and it'll be the last word only if you let it be. Of course, the bigger the stakes, the more difficult the ask. But most people are nervous about asking. It's only natural. But that reflex will get you a lot farther than a sense of entitlement and arrogance. If you simply ask people for help and empower them to assist you, you'll often be surprised by the results. People actually want to say yes, so just go for it. So after graduate school came my very first job in the business, which is where I learned the true art of paying dues, which is a key factor in anyone's career. My gig was right here in BU's backyard at WGBH, the flagship public broadcasting channel known for its original programming. I worked for a show called Infinity Factory, which was a television kids show. Now, one prominent member of the cast just happened to be a sheepdog. Not a cartoon sheepdog, not a puppet sheepdog, but a real, live, big, shaggy sheepdog who just happened to belong to one of the senior producers. Now, it's not uncommon in television to assign a production assistant like me to attend the needs of the talent. As the newest kid on the block, I was assigned that sheepdog. Unlike other talent, who might need someone to fetch them some coffee or run some lines, my talent's only off-camera needs were biscuits, water, and yes, someone to clean up its poop. Yeah, so you might say I learned from the ground up, literally, what paying dues really meant, and with a smile. But the dues did come with a fantastic dividend. I learned how important it is to know in intimate detail the subject matter you're responsible for. It's amazing how much you can learn about a dog when you're assigned to the responsibilities I had. For example, you knew every day well before shooting began whether our canine co-star was going to be chipper or shy, attentive or skittish, when he needed attention or when he really wanted to be left alone. I also knew that if that dog was happy, my producer was going to be happy. And guess what? That's the only thing that counted. Now, I know many of you are sitting here in these seats saying, I would never do that. Ugh. I understand. You're smart. You're savvy. You spent years working hard in undergraduate and graduate school. You've learned the tools of your trade. You know, perhaps a few of you will be the next Mark Zuckerberg, creating the next Facebook from your dorm room. But I have a feeling most of you will be just like me, hungry, enthusiastic, and willing to do anything to get that break. Now, I'm not saying the path to success is being a human pooper scooper, trust me. But when you're asked to do things you feel are a little absurd or beneath you, remember, you learn and you will be recognized by doing. So just do it. And you will probably walk away having learned more than you have ever imagined. And that's knowledge you're going to be able to use your entire career. Frankly, I'm still cleaning up talent messes, though these days, it's just a little easier keeping my hands clean. Anyway, with the reputation of getting things done and knowing how to avoid stepping into poop, I began to move up the production ranks. I went from Boston's WGBH and CVB to national networks like Lifetime and Sci-Fi and USA. Each new gig brought its own challenges and rewards, and I embraced every bit of change every step of the way. Sometimes because I was really excited about it, and sometimes, I gotta admit, because there were limited options. And believe me, it wasn't always easy. Even after you become accustomed to expecting the unexpected, I never thought change would come in the guise of bulging muscles, skimpy tights, and scripted mayhem. Many years ago, when I was beginning to feel comfortable in the position of overseeing scripted programming at USA Network, and after I had just completed an Emmy Award pro-social campaign, Erase the Hate, somehow it was decided that I was just the one to take on the World Wrestling Federation. Yeah, now called World Wrestling Entertainment. It was the network's biggest franchise at the time. Me, a nice Jewish girl from Queens. The closest I'd ever come to a body slam was back here in Boston when I got my hands on the last pair of 4-inch wedgies at Filene's basement. I was absolutely horrified. I thought to myself, after all my hard work, this is where I end up? In truth, I almost resigned that day. But luckily, my husband convinced me to give it a try. He said, you know, if you really, really hate it, you can always quit after 6 months. So I stayed. I did a little research. First, I watched the show literally through my fingers. I could not watch it. But then I gradually came to appreciate its core. What the show was about was an old-fashioned morality play based on the battle between good guys and bad guys, albeit really big good guys and really bad guys. But nothing prepared me for the first meeting at WWE headquarters in Stamford. First of all, those guys really are huge. Chairman Vince McMahon actually wrestles, as do many of the execs there. And you can't imagine what it was like walking into this estrogen-free zone to tell a conference room full of these enormous guys what I thought was wrong with their product. And I had no idea how they'd respond when I told Vince, look, I know nothing about your business. I've never watched a match before about a week ago, but I do know how to tell interesting stories, create memorable characters, and make good TV. If that's what you want, maybe this will work. He looked at me for what seemed like forever. Then he said, thanks for being honest, let's go. What followed was the most gratifying and fun experience of my entire career. We developed these literally oversized characters and over-the-top plot lines. We created stars like Stone Cold Steve Austin, I'm sure many of you have heard of him, and The Rock, who's since gone on to film fame, and big film fame, and turned the franchise into a pop culture phenomenon that it still is today. So the point of the story, besides the fact that I like to tell it, is you've got to be open to change. It's just so unpredictable. You never know where it's going to take you. I've never followed a roadmap in my career, and I found that the biggest left turn can lead you into the most exciting places you would never dream of. By the way, the McMahon kids, Shane and Stephanie, both went to BU. So you never know. Of course, when embracing change, it's not always what fate throws your way. Sometimes you have to initiate change to fight complacency. Sometimes you got to push that envelope and you got to take risks. But it also helps to have a safety net. I've always made sure that I was surrounded by people who could teach me something. And I've been really lucky to work with some of the best and some of the brightest people in the business. But it takes more than gathering a bunch of great and smart people together to build a strong team. You've got to learn how to foster an atmosphere of trust and collaboration. You can't have silos. You can't have any personal agendas. Everybody's got to be totally invested in whatever project they're working on. You've got to get rid of the egos. If you've truly got a collaborative team, it allows you to swing for the fences. And if things don't work out as planned, you've got support. You're not in it alone. You have a lot of shoulders to cry on. But that makes a difference also between a job that pays the bills and one that's going to feed the soul. Now, 10 years ago, at Sci-Fi, we took one hell of a swing for the fences with Steven Spielberg's Taken. By the way, if I'm not mistaken, Steven's going to be just up the road at about 1 o'clock. He's getting an honorary degree today. So a little coincidental. I'd written this before I even knew about Stephen. Good guy. But nevertheless, working with Stephen, we broke every rule in the book, except for the name Spielberg in the title. Everything about the project was nuts. It was a 20-hour miniseries, something that hadn't been done before and surely hadn't been done for 20 years. It cost over $40 million, close to a record at the time, and certainly a record for little old sci-fi. We scheduled it over 10 consecutive nights, something unheard of to this day. And the entire thing was built around a then unknown, a 9-year-old actor named Dakota Fanning. Getting it from script to screen was an 18-month process. Now, things were going fine till about 2 months before the air date, and everyone started to get nervous around us, particularly about the way it was scheduled. My boss, ad sales, the affiliates, finance. The only ones loving it were our competitors, who started smelling blood. They loved it. In fact, it was really pretty much them against us. Everyone was starting to push away because they felt it was such a risky product. But until that time, company chief Barry Diller, based on hearing all the skeptics, asked to see the first couple of hours. We got a little nervous at that point. But then Barry sent me an email I will never forget. And you gotta forgive me. I gotta tell this in his voice, mimicking him a little. He wrote, "Honey, if the rest of these episodes are as gluely compelling, then, my dear, I think you have a hit on your hands. Ignore the world." Very typical Barry. But I don't recommend using a word like gluely till you've made as much money as Barry. But happily, Barry was right. The show was a huge ratings hit. Sci-Fi had never cracked the top 10, and it was #1 for every night of the 2 weeks that it aired. It also went on to win the channel's first Emmy. So sure, awards and ratings are certainly sweet, but even sweeter is sharing the success with a totally committed and totally invested team. If it had gone differently, as they often do, there would have been no second guessing, no finger pointing. Everybody had given it his or her best. Everybody bought into it equally, every single decision that was made. We all owned it. And there's no way we'd have turned ourselves on it or each other. You can't take that kind of loyalty and integrity for granted. You guys have to learn and earn it. You've got to go to the distance, and if you go the distance, you have to develop the qualities that inspire trust and respect from others. Stephen Covey put it perfectly in a terrific book that I actually love called The Speed of Trust. He wrote, "People can't live with change if there's not a changeless core inside them. The key to the ability to change is the changeless sense of who you are, what you are about, and what you value." It really does boil down to that. And I take it one step further. Your core values will enable you not only to live with change, but to thrive on it. To me, those values, along with what you've learned here at BU, hold the key to success, no matter what you do in life. That, and remembering, every single thing you do in the pursuit of your career from this day forward, whether it's boldly leaping into an untested medium, getting into business with overdeveloped bruisers, or even cleaning up dog poop, all are an opportunity to learn and grow. You're off to an amazing start. You're smart. You've earned a degree from what, in my humble opinion, is the best communication school in the country. But it's only the beginning. William Butler Yeats wrote, "Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Now it's up to you guys to keep that fire burning bright." Best of luck, and congratulations, class of 2009.